Hey, good morning, folks. We're going to continue working on interior page art here for the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration document that we've been creating. Give me a second here to check my signal, make sure we're coming through okay, and then we'll go through my intro, and we'll get to work here for a couple hours. So let's see where we're at. Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 3. Mic check, mic check. Yeah, sounds good. Cool. All right. I'm going to go through my intro here. If you are in the future, hello, future us, and you've seen the intro before, you'll be welcome to skip ahead like a minute, and then I'll catch up with you with the continuation where we're going from here. But if you're here trapped in the present with me, or if this is the future and you don't know what's going on, who I am, what we got, what's going on here, my name's Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements. I illustrate them and I publish them online. And I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for the past 5 years. I publish my work on DMsGuild.com, and there is a slew of links in the description down below to previous work that I have created. They all have free previews, so if you're on a desktop device, there'll be a button that says full preview underneath the cover of each of the books on their individual product pages. And if you are on a mobile device, instead there'll be an eye icon on the right-hand side of the screen. If you click on the eye icon or the full preview link, it'll open a PDF either way, and you can read through all the documents that I publish. There's probably about 150 illustrations amongst the previews that are listed down below that I've created, and there's about 100, maybe around, if you do a search for my name on DMsGuild.com as an artist, you'll find probably about 100 different books that my stock art is in. So I really appreciate the community for having embraced the work that I produce, and have so much encouragement for folks to keep moving on. So let's see. Fix my windows here real quick. I've launched a channel. Hold on. Yeah, I launched a channel recently, Phil Kearney Creations. There is a link in the description down below here that you can click into. Discord community here. I also have, I just posted to Reddit Spelljammer. Big shout out to the Reddit Spelljammer community for asking so many great questions and seeing what's going on around here. I just posted on Twitter, so if you're still on the Twitter X platform, you can follow me at Phil Kearney to get notifications of when I'm live and see illustrations and stuff. Best way to support the channel overall is to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. We've accumulated more subscribers even since yesterday, so I really appreciate everyone being interested in the work that we're doing. What are we doing? I created this book cover. We're currently on episode 288. We created this book cover back around episode 15, so you can jump to the Wayback Machine here to the full playlist to see all the content that we've created so far, all the tokens, all the maps for Light of Zaraxis, all the ship tokens and creature tokens for space combat at different scales, at 500 foot, 50 foot. We'll be working on the 5 foot scale here shortly as well. We have, when I DM 5e, and I run from level 1 to 20 in about 200 hours. So when I create when I create a new book, it's because it's something either I need for an upcoming campaign that I don't have any tools for, that I need, that play well, so we end up building a book out of it, or during the course of a campaign, I discover cool mechanics and tools that we then lean into, and by the end of the campaign, we've had a chance to play test it for a while. I then build it out into a book for people to explore. So we'll have an idea, we'll play test the stuff. If it works well, we'll wordsmith it out and hire an editor to make sure that the words are actually good. Once that process is done and it gets passed back to me, I just use Microsoft Word here to organize the ideas into digestible chunks on the page. And all these empty spots that are showing up on these pages, these are all spaces where illustrations go. So we'll zoom into a particular page here, we'll copy this text, we'll drop it over here into Photoshop, and then we will start creating illustrations. And once this illustration for the page is done, we'll be able to extract it and then drop it onto the page like this, so that it sits nestled in the text. Once all the illustrations are done and we have all of the pages are assembled, we can seal it into a PDF published on DMsGuild.com. You'll have a link to check it out. So, that's what we're doing today. Let's continue working here on the Space Galleon versus Aero Fighter Craft. Combat illustration. There we go. So let's see. We were working on the line art for the Galleon. So let's just keep doing that until we're content. I'm gonna grab some black ink here. We'll drop down the size and do a little cleanup. I have a perspective, a conflict happening where I'm trying to draw the side and the front of this stairwell here at the same time, and I didn't have enough structure to properly do so. So I'm straightening out my edge here with this, like that. This, so I have this edge here. This is actually the corner. For here. And that fades into the perspective, disappearing into the curve. So this is the front, facing forward. So yeah, we're gonna fuck around with this structure for a while. Get this thing built out proper. And then we'll clean up the color edges, and then we'll seal it all together, and we'll start doing the detail work into the color and the line work together. That is how we do. A lot of time spent on this leading edge here. Let's hope the rest of the document isn't going to need such hyper attention. Such vigilance. That's a good word for it. Hypervigilance. Being overly protective of the line art within my own piece. That feels like a true statement to make. I like that. I like making that discovery. Change approved. And I can't have a curve here because the top edge here is straight. What are you doing, Crane? If it really reels, my dude. This can have an acceptable curve to it because it's starting to move into this molded, this sculpted curve of the structure itself. So the planks can curve with it. There. Come on, Muse. Muse on deck. Thank you, baby. Got a 20-minute timer here to make sure I don't fall down any particular rabbit hole too long. 20-minute timer helps me do a gut check every now and again, like where I'm at, what do I got going on. Alter this here. Now let's do it this way. How do I want to do it? That edge, yeah, this one is off. Let's trying to squeeze. It's like trying to speed between two semi trucks that are converging. See that? See that? Yeah. Let's squeeze in here now. And this would actually be really good if it wasn't tilted. Wrong off. So let's fix it. About like, that's perfect. I love that. That feels so right. Smooth that out. There, good. Come on, baby. Thank you. Yeah, this line art is a little rough down here. There. There we go. That feels pretty good. Yeah, that feels right. Thicken the stripe up here. You can get rid of that slop line texturing. It's just texture. It doesn't have any mechanical purpose other than me feeling better about the line. So it's unnecessary. It gotta go. There we go. I'll drop down to here. Grab this. Fill it in. The lighting will take care of this. We'll be able to clean up that edge pretty easily. And if I just keep going around the piece, I'll eventually run out of things I gotta fix. and then we'll be able to move into the color portion. So I'm hoping in the next hour we'll be at a place where we've mostly resolved all this line art, and that we do get it. I don't think coloration should take that long once we actually get into it. Most of the heavy lifting from the environment is done. Yeah, that's my 20-minute timely timer to help make sure I'm not diving down a rabbit hole too deep. And I think we're doing okay moving around the piece. I haven't had to hyper-focus or obsess over any particular moment, any particular point for more than a few moments. So I'd say we still have a very healthy relationship with this illustration. Oh, that was a good line. All right. Happy there. This is all, yeah, this is sitting pretty good. I want these lines precise, but not perfect. It is an organically created object. It was crafted by hand. Bent wood and all. Tarred together. So it's gonna have some variation in thickness in the seams just from the tar that's set into it, but the perspective has to be right. There. Good. Okay, cool. That feels right. Back to here. Even though we're back here again, we're working on a different part of it. So everything feels fresh. That feels good. I mean, it's still sketch as fuck. The numbers are coming in. Good. All right, so that feels better. Woof. There's still some rough over here, huh? That's cool. We'll fix it. We'll clean it up. It'll get fixed. Stick with it. Just stick with it, buddy. We'll get there. Yeah, that feels right. Let's fill in the gap. There. But yeah, this feels good. Good lines, good lines. Good lines. What's up? Hey, Billy, how you doing? What's there's so this is for Spelljammer 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It's a campaign setting. The boats have a magical device. It's basically a chair, or a saddle, or a pillar, or a dais, or any kind of object that basically fits a 5 or 10 foot space. It's up to you, but it's a device that's mounted somewhere inside or on the ship. For this galleon, the helm would probably be down in here somewhere, or on this back castle deck here. On these little fighter craft, this chair, this little saddle that they sit in is all that they need. But in either way, the seat that the pilot sits in when they do, when a consciousness connects to the chair, like attunes to or maintains focus on that seat, that interface, their consciousness basically becomes the vessel. So you can see basically from any perspective on or inside the ship as though you were standing there. And you can maneuver and move the ship around like you're hovering, like a dragonfly can hover. The sails aren't actually necessary, but galleons they do land on water, just as their like default landing state, so they can load and unload stuff out of communities. They typically come in on water and then just sail their way in the rest of the way, even though they can just pick up and fly off. The boat the boat aesthetic is something that like Waterdeep, for instance, a massive like a metropolis in the Forgotten Realms campaign world, requires that they approach their community not from the sky but land in water and then come into the bay. Because if you have a ship, if you have ships in space that are flying over the city and one of them goes wrong and then crashes into the Emperor's castle, you're now in an intergalactic war for no reason because you had bad driving. So they have a strict no-fly rule over cities, and most do that know about flying boats like this. So you could hold on, my stuff's in the way. So you could strip the entirety of the ship and just have a flying chair. It has to have. It's described as having at least 1 ton of weight. That for there's 2 types. There's major helms and there's minor helms. Major helms can basically be strapped to anything that's larger than like 50 feet or larger in scale. Like occupies a 50-foot space. These smaller minor helms have require at least a 10-foot space. So anything from 10 to 50 feet, a minor helm, or these like fighter craft, or these rocket jockey sort of helms can pilot these small vehicles, and then the larger ones anywhere from honestly anywhere from 10. I mean, you can strap a major helm to a small fighter craft. It's just a lot of horsepower and a lot of travel power for such a small little ship. But you could anything that's 10 feet, anything from 10 feet to 500 feet can be fitted with a major helm and have the same kind of flight power that the galleon has, except that it's like putting a hyperdrive on an X-wing fighter. You know, some of them have it, some of them don't. Star Wars reference for you there. Back in the earlier episode 1 to 3, they'd have this ring that you'd fit. Here, I'll draw it real quick. It was like I want to say it was like in the second Star Wars movie, Episode 2. Anakin's starfighter here, right? It had a ring that it was able to clip onto, and when it did, it could hyper jump. And when it was done hyper jumping, it was like a one shot. It was like a one-shot device. So once he landed in the star system that he was hyperspacing to, the machine drops off, and now he's just his own little fighter ship. But those fighter ships that he was flying around in were about 30 feet long. So these things are about 15, and this is about 130. Well, it's the same sort of effect. There's a lot like a hyperspace engine on a small little fighter craft. It's a lot of horsepower, and these things are designed to traverse space for months. So the idea of you sitting on your bicycle seat for 3 months while you travel from point A to point B in a fighter ship is a little ridiculous. A ship like this could take all these little fighter craft here and basically clip them along the bottom, have little clip areas here that it would be able to use as to disembark from the ship like this, right? You got your seat here and here and here, and then you can have somebody jump off the edge, jump in the seat, and then the seat jumps off, and then you're on your way. But that's just different designs. There. Yeah. Same sort of thing. Little ships. It's like it's very inexpensive to create and utilize one of these larger major helms to be able to travel long distances. But the small small fighter craft engines, they're about as expensive as a suit of full plate armor. So they're very inexpensive, an expensive warhorse with full metal barding, a suit of plate mail, and a weapon grade lance with a good tower shield would cost about the same amount for a mounted knight around a castle. It would cost about the same as one of these fighter craft. They're called arrows because they look like arrows. Here's the overhead schematics for what they are. Here's your here's your rocket jockey, your pilot saddle. Here's the harpoon flinger. That's an anti-personnel weapon that's clipped to the front of it. And then in comparison, here's your space galleon. These are ballistas. Here's a mangonel. And then here are the little harpoon flingers that are here. So that's a sense of scale for you. This is essentially 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet, 25 feet here. So the whole thing's about 30 feet wide to that box edge, or about 40 feet with these little bay ports here. So the main thick of this structure is roughly like this. And so you measure this out, like here's 50 feet, here's 50 feet, here's 50 feet. So that's 50, 100, 150. So that's 150 feet long, and then you break it into basically a tic-tac-toe grid, basically like this. Sloppily done, but this is a 3 by 3 space with 50-foot squares, while this is 3x3. Get that straightened out. This is 3x3 at the 5-foot scale. So this is 15 feet. This is about 150 feet. So this thing's literally 10 times the size as this. The ballistas and mangonels that are on this vessel here, like this does D4 times 10 damage per shot. This does D6 times 10 damage per shot. And these little harpoon flingers, or like this one here, that does 2d8 damage. This thing can fly 100 million miles in a day. This can fly 1 million miles in a day. This has a top speed of 100 miles per 6 seconds, which is the duration of a round in Dungeons and Dragons, versus this, which has a 10,000 miles per round, or 1,000 squares on a combat grid. So it's generally working in magnitudes of 10 or 100 times larger in size, just depending on what the metric is. And then it's painted, and then it's all decorated with this pirate, space pirate sort of theme. Right here, I'll show you. Vessels. Here's all the different vessel tokens that we created for this. Does hyperspeed ramming exist in this set? Yes, it does, to a degree. There is the range of a ballista is about, it's 500 feet to fire accurately, and you can still take a shot because of zero gravity. You have an effective range of 1 mile. So basically, from point blank to 1 mile is the scale of distance that you have to attack. Within 500 feet, you don't have any penalties to make that attack, but beyond 500 to 1 mile away, you're at disadvantage with your attack. It's easier for your opponents to evade it. And if you're over 1 mile away, it takes so long for these physical weapons to arrive at their destination that as long as you're aware that you're under attack, you can see the weapons, you can see the bolts and the stones coming, you just shift out of the way and they miss. So if you're over 1 mile away, you can't really engage in combat unless you're catching somebody surprised with a sniper shot. So within that 1 mile space is basically your scale of combat, and you can break that into a grid of 500-foot squares, like 500, 1,000, 1,500. 10 squares at the 500-foot scale is a 10 by 10 grid is a mile, and you break it down into 500-foot squares, and you can see that with 150 feet. A galleon like this, 150 feet, can easily sit inside of a single 500-foot square. So you can have meaningful ship-to-ship combat in these 500-foot spaces, even though if you wanted to zoom in, you would then have, you'd break this into a 3x3 grid at the 50-foot scale so that you would be able to have like melee combat and stuff at a closer scale where the ships are attempting to ram and engage with each other. So to your sense about hyperspeed ramming, hyperspeed in Spelljammer is basically using 1,000 mile squares of movement during a round of combat. You can move 5 squares with 1 move action, and then you can use your character's action economy instead of casting a spell or making attacks. You can take another action to dash or move again. So 5 squares and another 5 squares. If you're moving 10 miles per hour, then each square is 1 mile. The max speed is 10,000 miles per round, or 6 seconds. So basically 1,000 miles squares, but you only need to be within 500 feet to be able to have enough distance to make a ram attack. So as long as I fly my ship forward 500 feet, when I ram into you, I can do ramming damage. And it's either double or triple damage, and either pierces to grapple a ship. If it's a blunt nose, it'll knock them off axis and cause everyone on board to take falling damage. Or you have a slashing ram, which is just a giant blade that cuts through it. Slashing rams deal triple damage. Bludgeoning rams deal double damage, but knock your ship, scuttle your ship. And then piercing rams deal double damage when they hit. And if they do hit, they puncture the ship and you automatically start grappling until the enemy ship can dislodge itself from the pierced ram and then continue to move along. Some of the craft that we have here are there's a big insect motif throughout the official artwork for these ships. And there's a fish theme that goes on. Like here's a lamprey craft that you can see. It's smaller than, but still occupies about the same 3x3 space as the galleon does. Because I could make this thing. If I were to have this, they can turn in place. They have hovering, like 360 gyroscopic movements while they're in zero gravity. So for this thing to be able to accurately, I'm on a tangent, but I think it's totally worth it. So hold on real quick. For me to be able to make this thing operate properly, it needs to be able to rotate in its own. I don't know why this thing's being all funkin' weird. For this thing to be combat ready or to be useful in Dungeons and Dragons combat, it has to be able to rotate in place. If you had a horse, if you were riding a horse, it would occupy a 2x2 space at the 5-foot scale because a horse is about 8 feet long. So for it to be able to turn in place and maneuver and do stuff, it has to occupy a space that's as wide as it is long so that it has the ability to turn like a horse could turn. Spelljammer ships happen to have that hover capability of being able, like a dragonfly, to be able to even fly backwards if they want to. And our document really leans into that concept. So when you have a ship, it occupies a space of whatever's longer or wider, whichever way it works. And you have basically like this bubble of air that stays around your ship, bonding to the gravity of the craft. So, like this doesn't have any real like masts or like sails or anything, but some of them do. It's just the aesthetic of the ship and its purpose. Like this damselfly craft, it's not waterworthy. It's a metallic ship that sinks if it hits water. So it has landing gears. Its legs are landing gears, but you can also use these as weapons. So when you get close enough to a ship, you can use it to stab. Because you become the bug. This basically becomes your body, like shape-changing. While you're piloting the ship, your consciousness infuses the vessel. So you're able to fly the ship and maneuver around and make attacks at each other. Some of them are like the Night Spider. These are all official ships that are published in the. Here, if you aren't familiar with the document, D&D Beyond, and then sources. Spelljammer, Astral Adventures, ships, Night Spider. Here's one of the paintings for that for this ship. This is the token that we created, and it's 200 feet long. So you can see how this is massive. Pincer legs are filling the space, along with his abdomen, his head, and stuff. But in this one, it has all this this netting. It obviously that doesn't actually help it fly at all. It doesn't need anything to fly. The magic of the vessel itself makes it fly. But you can use these things strewn between its legs as nets to engulf a ship and trap it if you wanted to. That's kind of the aesthetic that they have going on with what this Night Spider craft is. But if they aren't burdened or trapped up with nets to tie up ships that are being attacked. Like, look at this flitter ship here. This little elven flitter ship. It's 50 feet long. It's kind of a gunboat / luxury yacht, or like small scale yacht. It's large enough that it can have a bunk and a kitchenette and a toilet in it if you wanted to do like make a casual civilian model of it. Or if it's combat, then it has weapon systems that are built into it that you can use. But this Night Spider would be able to just punch a hole through would be able to fuck this ship up real easily. Like, these claws are doing D8 times 10 damage each, and if they hit with one of these pincers, it grapples the ship. So I could hit with this giant claw, and this has 100 hit points. So I could do D8 times 10 damage with just one of these attacks. That's up to 80 damage. So basically, if this thing rammed, like ramming speed, and pounced on this little ship, it would deal double damage and impale the ship. So I could potentially destroy this little fighter craft in one hit with the size of this vessel, but it also has all of these weapons off of its battle platform. So it would be able to lay in D6 times 10, D6 times 10, D4 times 10, D4 times 10, 2D8, 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 D8 times 10, D8 times 10, D8 times 10, D8 times 10. It has a lot of weapons. It is designed to screw shit up. So, but it doesn't require sails or anything to be able to fly. All you really need is the pilot. The maximum size, although none of the ships that are depicted in Spelljammer, here I'll give you the biggest one that they have in the book. Hammerhead ship is 250 feet long. This is a trebuchet. These are ballistas. These are the harpoon flingers, and then on the back deck you have two mangonels, like little catapult throw the stone things. Trebuchets are really big mangonels that throw really big rocks. So these do D4 times 10. This does this does D8 times 10. This does D6 times 10. So the amount of damage that this ranged weapon does, it has like a 1,500 foot range normally. So it'd be like, this is a 50-foot scale. It'd be what? It'd be 30 of these squares is normal range for this trebuchet weapon, but this ranged weapon does as much damage by throwing a stone as this piercing ram will do as a melee weapon. So all the weapon damage is calibrated with each other. This thing has 400 hit points. It's basically 100 hit points for every 50 feet square that your ship occupies. This flitter occupies a 50-foot square, so it has 100 hit points itself. Meanwhile, these aerocraft are only 15 feet in size, so they have about 30 hit points apiece, which is incredibly fragile. You can knock one of these things out of the sky with one of these. Like, if you hit with a ballista, that may be enough damage just to punch a hole through the ship and disable it. So then your pilot can't fly the ship anymore until it gets repaired and gets hit points back. So the ramming speed that we were talking about is, since I can go 1,000 miles per round but only have an effective combat range of 1 mile, I can ramp up my speed as fast as I want to, but I only need to travel 500 feet to do so. So the answer is yes, but it's irrelevant. It doesn't deal any more damage than what you would normally do. Although, if you were going from stop to 10,000 miles per round, or basically going from stop to 1,000 miles squares of movement, you could pass through the square that the ship is occupying, ram it on the way by, and then continue on your way at 10,000 miles per round. Hit and go, and you're just blip out of sight. So then you have a tracking system. It's called an orrery, and it's installed into the ship. And while the ship is active, while the pilot is imbuing the ship with sentience, somebody else can use an orrery. It's basically like a sonar system to track objects, and depending on the size of the object will determine how far away you can catch sight of it. But you can effectively chase ships through a system, even though typically you're not going to be able to catch sight of these things like more than 10, 100 miles away in open space. It's because of resolution becoming an issue. But the orrery can see them thousands of miles away. So although you can't effectively attack something at that distance, you can keep a tracker on it and try to close distance over time in pursuit. And over time, if you're successful with your piloting skills to overcome your target, you can catch up to and then re-engage them in combat again. If the fleeing pilot rolls a better piloting score, then you can't catch up with them. They'll eventually disappear off your radar altogether, and then you have to spend time trying to track them down again by sending out signals to try to catch them. So it's like large scale. It's like large scale perception, or like large scale investigation, or like feeling that there's something out there, using insight. These are the 3 skills that you can use, like with your wisdom or your intelligence score. That's how D&D works. These ability checks that are modified by skills that you gain to give you bonuses to the checks that you're making. Anyway, quick crash course. Yes, and the largest that a single helm can pilot is 500 feet, 500 foot space. And again, like this is only 200 feet here. So the Hammerhead ship was 500. Get these out of the way again to show you. So this is half the size. Like you could have, hold on. I'll shut this one down. I'll open up the other one. Just to walk through it real quick, since we're on the subject. So here's the aerocraft, right? 15 by 15 foot space. Here's the different icons for some of the different weapons. But what I wanted to do was, here we go. There's something called an armada carrier. This is one of the illustrations from the old 1989 book. This is a 500-foot ship. So 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 at the 50-foot scale. These flitters that they have these silhouettes for, this is the scale of that flitter, that 50-foot craft that we showed you before. And let's find that again. There you go. Here's the flitter, right? And here's its scale in comparison. Sorry, that's not right. This is a larger one. The micro fighters that they have are 15 feet too. So this scale here is approximately the size of, this is about the size of this aerocraft, but it would be in the butterfly motif instead of this arrow, and it wouldn't have slashing ram. Like this whole edge is just a giant razor blade, so it's a slashing ram, even though it's a small craft. That's why they're called arrows. But you can have these little 15-foot craft, and you can have fuckloads of them on the back of this carrier, and this is like a 150-foot wide citadel that basically sits on the back of this giant butterfly. So it's a carrier ship. It's basically a battle platform. It's designed to go from system to system, set up shop, and then just distribute shitloads of ships as squadrons of combat, right? So anyway, this is bigger than the scale of stuff that they put in the 2025 book. In the Spelljammer WotC's 5th edition that published in 2022. They didn't get this deep into it with like all the different things that you could do. But this is the absolute maximum size footprint of a ship that can be piloted with one single helm. You can have larger structures that can work if you connect a number of, they call it linked helms, where you take a number of the major helms and you link them all together so that everyone that is infusing their consciousness into the ship, or basically one person is the pilot and everyone else is lending their essence as a battery to link up with that pilot, so that one person can steer a larger ship as a group think. But if somebody gets stunned, knocked out, killed, or taken off of their chair, it breaks the chain, and then the ship stops. So generally, you don't want to have a vessel that's larger than 500 feet in size, but that is plenty big. It's an entire fief that you can basically sit inside of this space. Like 500 feet is a really big space for a structure. So it's plenty, but it can be larger. It can be larger, but you just have to have a series of helms all working together to have enough like psychic resonance, basically, to be able to encompass this larger ship and move it. So you could theoretically do that with an entire moon, but you'd need tens of thousands of helms all synchronized together like a Dyson sphere that would surround the planet to have enough awareness to be able to do that. But if you could coordinate that much stuff together, you could create an energy bubble around a planet and have it move as well, which would be a potential interesting save your planet from being destroyed doomsday scenario. But you would have to have 10,000 people all coordinating together at the same time to have that resonant awareness to be able to do that, and that's almost an impossible task. So we see limits. So, but that's just a narrative limit. You could decide, if I wanted to convert this to a true sci-fi system, I could just as easily just say, yeah, you have to have an engine that takes up a quarter of your ship size. Like minimum ship scale would be machinery and engineering that takes up a quarter of the ship's mass. And that is an engine big enough to push whatever it is that it is. And then you can just set scale for cost and the amount of crew that you need to engineer and make that thing go, and fuel sources and stuff. You can dive down the rabbit hole with that if you want to, depending on what type of setting you're trying to narrate. And then Spelljammer, it's just It's just ships flying through space. It's just, you know, space pirates. The tagline should be "Don't think about it too much," but that's exactly what I do. So, but they aren't asking you to think about it too much. It's just a cool little motif, you know, a neat little Pirates of Van Sant, but in space. So, but because that's the attitude that Wizard of the Coast took, a lot of people are dissatisfied. It's like, no, I need more crunch. I need more mechanics here for me to feel like I know what I'm doing, and so that, you know, we can riff off of it and make our own stuff and not just play inside the sandbox that they offer as an example. It's like, I want to do my own thing. How do I do that? So this book is trying to provide an answer for how would you do that. So anyway. Rant. Feel like I need to clip this. I'm being a perfectionist. Just like that. Nice. All right, I'm content with that. I can be content with that. Let's just do some more cleanup and move along. You got me monologuing again. Those little monologues, by the way, is exactly why I have a timer going. So I can afford myself a tangent like that and you know, dive down the rabbit hole of geeking out and be able to still be able to recover from it and get stuff done. Take your time, timer. Some real rough and ready line work here. Perspective. There we go. Doesn't have to be ultra fancy, but the proportions are about right. I actually need to make these stairs a little smaller. Without having to be ultra specific. That feels right though. So I'll go down to here, grab this. Oof, this front nose is still just sloppy. Have to fix it all. Keep working the problem, edge out, work in, edge out, work in. Good. Starts showing your size enemy something several miles long. Yeah. It can be done in Spelljammer. It's more suitable for like Star Wars or Warhammer 40k that have vessels that like have ships that size. Again, you just gotta fit. The system works fine for anything that's, you know, up to 100,000 miles in size. Well, it just depends on what your top speed is. Our top speed is our rounds in Dungeons and Dragons are 6 seconds long. And the vessels with the major helms, they can travel up to 100 million miles in a day, which basically breaks down. If you squint just a little bit, that breaks down to about 10,000 miles per 6 seconds, or 1,000 miles squares on a map grid. So that's the max speed over time that these vessels are currently clocked at. But that's an arbitrary number that was provided as a simple mapping, just to make math easy for people while they're like doing grids in space and like you know, patrolling areas or exploring asteroid belts or stuff like that. It's a meaningful speed that feels good at a large scale that you're making progress through space, but it's certainly not light speed. And the physical weapons that these ships use, that pirate, that pirate fleet aesthetic where you're firing ballistas, and well, they have one type of cannon in the game, but it's massive and it's clumsy and difficult, but it does 2d8 times 10 damage on a hit. It just takes a lot of people to load and fire it, and it's very slow, as opposed to like a sci-fi setting that would have like rail guns and missile silos and laser systems that could have multiple weapons under a single trigger of one person that's taking aim. So you could have a laser that's capable of targeting an enemy up to 100,000 miles away, and have the max speed of movement on the ships be 100,000 miles per round. So as long as you're within one round distance of your target, or a 100,000 mile square, they could be 100,000 miles in the next square and still target them to attack with those lasers. But the scale of combat that you're using is 100,000 miles per square. So if you zoomed in, it'd be 10,000 miles per square on a 10 by 10 grid. Zoom in, it'd be 1,000 miles on a 100 by 100 mile grid, or 100 by 100 square grid. And then if you zoomed in to the 100 mile scale, it'd be 1,000 square grid. And if you zoomed into 10 miles, it would be a 10,000 square grid. But now in that 10 mile space, a Star Destroyer is about 7 miles long. So it could occupy a single 10 mile square, even though it can fire lasers at something 100,000 miles away. The scale is 1,000 times longer than what you can the actual size of the ships. So you have to set a scale of movement and weapon ranges, and those two things calibrate the size of the battlefield that you're able to properly depict combat on. So that's a TIE fighter is 35 feet long, 35 feet wide. For a sense of comparison, it's, you just have to know what your scale is and then adjust accordingly. Like a TIE fighter fits inside of a 50-foot square, but has an effective plasma, its lasers can effectively hit something like, say, 10 miles away. And it can fire missiles at something that could be 100,000 miles away if you have a missile boat. Because there's different types of TIE fighters, There's bombers, and there's missile boats, and there's interceptors, and then there's standard soldier models. But again, that's a good example of setting your scale and your distance, of the scale of the ships, the scale of movement, the scale of targeting, and then depending on the size of the ship is going to determine the amount of hit points that object has at whatever scale it is at, and then you calibrate weapons accordingly. Like a hammerhead ship is 250 feet long, has 500 hit points, and the biggest weapon that it has can deal D8 times 10 damage when it hits. 80 damage. So it takes about 12 hits from its own weapon to be able to destroy itself, which is not an unusual ratio for a game like Dungeons and Dragons, that like you can kill yourself in 10 normal hits. Isn't unusual. Could be as little as 5, so like 5 to 10. Like an ogre has like 50 hit points and typically does about 10 points of damage when it hits. A goblin has I think 12 hit points and deals about 3 or 4 points of damage every time it hits. So the scale is in there, but as long as you're ballparking in that area, you can calibrate the amount of damage that your ships do by a multiplier based on size. If it's at a 5-foot scale, it's straight numbers. If it's a 50-foot scale, then it's times 10. If it's a 500-foot square, then it can be times 100 damage. 1 mile square can be 1,000 times damage. So it just keeps scaling out. Or that'd be times 100, sorry. 10, 100, yeah. Up to 500 feet is times 10. Yeah, up to 1,000 is times 100. So however many zeros you have at the end of your number, that's the multiplier. This is all kind of pinched, so I need to... Perfect. Good line, Kearney. So smooth. There's some really great line work in here. I'm really happy. That's too radical. It needs to be curving out. Or flat. It needs to be flatlining, not curving so much. I need a more gradual curve. Get rid of these windows altogether. Reassess. Yeah, better. Still a little rough, but better. There. Smooth that out a bit. Like that. We're getting there. You're slowly getting there. Just like that. Thank you, Timely Timer. I hear ya. Hold on. Thank you. Keep me from diving down the rabbit hole too far. Good curve. Good. There, good. There we go. Good solution, Kearney. Good. Sketch over here. I know the whole thing's pretty rough and ready right now, but I'm pretty happy with it. That's pretty good. Still really rough over on this far edge. I feel myself wanting to clean that up. So if I can get this webbing down here and this webbing over here, if I can straighten up the geometry on these, I'll be pretty happy to go. That feels pretty good. I'm like, how much do I really want to fret over straightening this stuff out versus when I come through with the coloring, how much is that going to auto-correct all this sketch art? And I know the answer traditionally is get it as good as I can during the sketch stage, because this creates a lot of drag on the coloration process. But at the same time, it can be corrected in the coloring process. And it's not a token, so I don't need a clean black-white version. It's just that if I don't, it tends to slow down the color production. So I'm having to do a bunch of micro fixes. Good. This is normally when I stop during the week. It's 7:53. It'd be time for me to go to my day job, but I have this week off. I'll be back. I don't know what my schedule is like for Monday the 1st. I might be on. I might not. I don't know yet. Once I do know, I should know. I should know by tomorrow. Also good. Clean that up. There, good. And let's see, there's that, and let's clean up the masts next, the sails, I mean. Here we go. Dare I begin the coloration process? I think I do. I think I dare. I'm going to hit save real quick. I'm going to have myself a bit of coffee. Just had a big sternum pop. Very enjoyable. So I have an hour. Just gonna sit back for a moment here, just give myself a break, bask in the glory of gloriage. All right, let's get to work. Let's grab. Let's grab like that. Maybe here at the front end? Business. Let's just work this all in. a very marker, like concept design sort of coloration feeling going on here. Don't hate it. Bring this back in underbelly. I like that. Thank you, Timely Timer, for keeping me on time. Yeah, we can just go in with the general lighting, and then we can get more specific as we curve into smaller spaces. So here like this. Don't mind me, I'm just over here mouth breathing. Not bad. So far, so good. Drop in some inexplicable darkness up here. Pretty much an aesthetic decision to do that. It doesn't have any real actual logic to it. Mast is getting in the way. Get out of here, you scallywag. Better you. There. very dark edge. There. Yeah, that line weight is starting to bite me in the ass. The wrong way. Maybe back here. I think I need to put that on a separate layer regardless. That's detail work. I'm liking this so far. It's really simple, so I'm really happy with that. Let's see. Yeah, let's start working this here like that. There we go. Mark that down. I'm kind of liking this. Wop, wop. Yeah, it feels pretty good. Feel like I want to blip, blip. Drop that like that, and then drop this back a bit like that. That feels pretty good. Hey, what's up? It was a drop. SpongeBob Ghost Chip. SpongeBob Ghost Chip. I don't know that reference. I mean, I know what SpongeBob is, but just don't get that particular reference. Where's that coming from? Where's that grit coming from? It is coming from here. Can't be the sail. There it is. Thank you. Well, hey Nadia, how you doing? By a flying chair, how far is the range? Could it power like a small, close-together fleet rather than just one big ship? Each ship in a fleet requires its own craft. It's the pilot. There's different roles. This is for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, the Spelljammer campaign setting. It has very specific rules and aesthetics. The chair. A pilot sits in the chair to pilot a single ship. Action economy in Dungeons and Dragons is object interaction, action, bonus action, and reactions. And attacks can be made using actions or bonus actions typically. So if you're flying a single ship, you would be using pilot actions to fly that single ship. If you're commanding multiple ships in a single squadron, you'd be using squadron commander options, which include a lot of the same movement options that a pilot has, but it also weaves in the attack actions that a siege commander has. A siege commander can command one or multiple weapon crews to fire siege weapons, either individually or all as a batch. And the more that you fire, the more siege weapons that you command at the same time, the more likely it is that you have to spend extra action economy to get them to coordinate and reload all the weapons again to be able to fire a single silo as multiple weapons. Squadrons work the same way. As long as each ship has a pilot that's in command of it, instead of commanding 4 or 5 guys on a catapult to fire that weapon and then reload it and fire it again, a squadron commander can command multiple pilots aboard ships to move in unison as a squadron to stay in formation. And then the action economy filters down from the squadron commander to the pilots of each individual ship to then command the crews of each ship to fire their weapons. So a squadron commander is coordinating multiple ships to move and fire together, just like at the individual level, a pilot would move a single ship while the siege commander would command multiple weapons on that ship to be firing. A pilot and a siege commander and a squadron commander can be the same person. A squadron commander could have their own ship subsumed into a squadron so that when you take the move action, you're also issuing commands for your squadron to move with you. I have point, follow my lead. And then you do that, and then when you order for full silo fire, all weapons in the squadron will fire together in unison. And then there's the issue of there's reload mechanics for how frequently ships can fire as a single silo, how often single ships can fire. It's all off a random die roll. Like if you roll high enough on a weapon attack die, you'll also be able to reload your weapons again. If you roll poorly, then you have to spend extra actions to get your team to all get in line to fire again as a group. And once they're all back in line, you could spend one action having a silo fire and then spend 2 or 3 more actions getting all of your ships or weapons realigned, and then another action to fire them all again. So a character will typically have about 3, maybe 4 actions that they can use per round to do things like that. But if you have 3 or 4 people on your team, that's around 12 to 16 actions overall as a team that can be performed. So you can layer your actions together. 2 people can act in unison together as siege commanders to help fire and reload weapons between each other. And you can have pilots and squadron commanders be able to coordinate movement of ships as well as orders to have them fire as well. So the roles are designed to be blended together and mixed using your action economy per round in the game to be able to coordinate and make the attacks that you need. So, yeah. So a single ship requires a single helm to pilot it. Multiple ships require multiple helms to pilot each ship individually. But as long as you have communication with all of the ships inside of your squadron, you can have them act in unison. And then if you have multiple squadrons that are chained together, they can act as a fleet. And you can have individual ships, squadrons, or fleet combat. And the sense of scale is mostly based on what resources your character is able to accumulate, hire on, and then maintain as a crew. So by the time your team, your characters in the game, are able to accumulate 3, 4, maybe 5 ships into a squadron, the narrator, the DM, has enemies against you that are also scaling up to fleets or massive carriers that require multiple ships to take out. So the DM, the narrator, is always scaling the challenge to be a little bit greater, a little bit further ahead than where the team is at. So the team's effort is to accumulate matching resources to take on the threats that are becoming apparent inside of the story. So like the Rebel fleet in Star Wars had to assemble a bunch of ships and goodwill to have all these carriers and craft to be able to form a small armada to be able to fight against the Empire in limited engagements. But as they continue to scale up and the Empire falls, then the Republic starts to rise up and it has larger and larger resources to create bigger and bigger military to then fight the insurgents off of what's remnant of the Empire that's in the mid-belt range. So it's, again, you're always matching, the narrator, the DM is always escalating threats that the team then has to figure out how can they manage their resources and their influence to be able to pull in enough firepower to be able to match and resist whatever that threat is being presented. So, same sort of thing, you know? Like if there's a dragon, your single knight might not be able to do anything against it, but if you get a team together to go attack that dragon in its lair, maybe the batch of you will be successful together. So it's that same sense of scale and threat and priority. But you know, that's running and narrating games like this is its own hobby and skill set versus like just being a player in these games where you're just worrying about the individual decisions that your character makes or the decisions that you're making on behalf of a crew of people that maybe your character oversees or has command over. But the DM that's narrating the actual adventure has to have... Oops, I am on the wrong layer. No one that's... Oh, well, fuck it. Gotta get that out of there. I was working on the wrong layer. Get out of there, scallywag. There. Duplicate, merge, conceal. There we go. It doesn't have to be a chair. It's normally a chair because they're comfortable to sit in, and pilots have long stretches of duty. Like, you always have to have somebody focusing on the helm, but the helm doesn't have to be a chair. The helm could be a saddle, like on a smaller craft like this. It's just basically like a rocket jockey. You have an actual like chair that you can sit back in and relax, like a captain's chair. It could be a dais where you're standing inside of a circle. It could be a pillar where where pilots and co-pilots are standing around. It could be like a tether net system. It could be a gem that your character is suspended inside of while you're attuned to the ship and piloting it. There's a lot of different ways you can narrate it and have different aesthetics. But it's all basically the same. As long as the craft is up to 500 feet, one pilot is capable of attuning to it, and then operating or piloting it. Words are goofy sometimes. Don't mind me. This is for Dungeons and Dragons specifically the Dungeons and Dragons Spelljammer setting, which is like a super specific micro subset of what D&D overall is. But it is Spelljammer first came out, I think it was in 1989, and is a very beloved setting. It has a huge fan base. But still just a fraction of what Magic the Gathering has. Yeah, I don't think I need to do that much more for this. I'm gonna probably have to do some line cleanup on these masts and the rigging. Well, I'm going to have to, but I think I can get the overall structure pretty much put in place right now. And then it's just a little bit of detail work. Yeah, now let's go to our mast, our sails. Good. Let's go with that. I'm going to need to spend a little time futzing around with the line art for the rigging, just in general, and that is going to be a slow process. It'll probably take me about 3 hours, maybe about 3 hours to actually resolve all the rigging. And I don't want to spend that time on screen here doing this. So I'm going to finish up the highlighting on these sails, and then I'm going to call it cut for the day. And when we come back on Monday, I'm going to start a different illustration. This one is super close to done. So it's just working on basically the line art for the mast and the rigging that we have here, which is obviously incomplete, and then clean up the sketchiness of the masts. That is something I don't feel like I need to spend any extra time on when we have other paintings that we can begin. So I can work on finishing this one up offline, much like I've been working on the painting from last week. I've been finishing up the detail work and the texturing and stuff for the wood frame and stuff like that. But I still have after this one, we still have 5 more illustrations. And so I want to get to work on the other ones just to make sure I'm pacing myself. And I can always float back around to these if I need to. But I anticipate I should have this one done. If I pick at it next week, it'll be done by Wednesday in the evening. And I don't have to spend extra time on this one specifically on screen. So I'm looking forward to the next. The next one is a boarding scene, and we'll see if it's got a lot going on. So we'll see if the size of the picture is going to be able to match the amount of activity that I'm attempting to depict in that space. So that'll be a challenging picture for us to do next week, but it will be next week that we'll begin that next one. So I'm going to be back. I am currently going through the process of wrapping up for today. So I've got another few sales I still need to drop some highlights on here real quick, but I'm going to be back on for lunchtime today, continuing to work on the Ravnica setting, converting the spellcasting backgrounds to the martial power system. Yeah. So that'll be in about probably in about 4 hours. We'll be back on for an hour or so to do martial powers for lunch. And then I'll be back tomorrow morning. Not 100% sure what it is that we're working on tomorrow morning. During Saturday morning is basically like an open workbench, right? If I have commissions, I'll do commissions. Then I've specifically not taken on any more commissions until this book publishes, which means I could potentially have more commissions like around the beginning of February, but I might continue holding off so I can make more time for the campaign, the adventure that I have to build to play test the martial power system that we've been developing. So we'll see what that does. I think Saturday we're going to work on. I think we're going to work more on, the Ravnica adventure. That feels right. In. Last sale, and then we'll call it for the day. Yeah, it feels pretty good. Nice. Nice. All right. This is super close to done, but there's still some detail work I need to do on the rigging. Just gets like some little rope ladders and stuff in there. Maybe some little incidental bits. But that's it. So we're going to go ahead and cut that for the day. And where are we at? 8:30? That was a pretty good run. A 2-hour stretch. So when we come back on Monday, we're going to start on a completely different illustration. I'm going to continue working on this one off screen over the weekend. Should have it cleaned up probably by Tuesday. I'm not going to break my neck over it. I got other fish to fry as well. But I will get this cleaned up and add in a little bit more, just a little bit more. We also have some, point at the screen like you can see it. I have some stars I need to dot in here and here to mesh this background in a little bit more smoothly. But yeah, we'll have a little bit of star splash back there. We'll come back and look at this when it's finished. But it's, I think we've gotten pretty much the excitement of what this piece is pretty much resolved. So I'm gonna close that up here real quick. I'm already seeing a spot here that I want to. Into that, for example, to keep that lighting going. That arbitrary shadow at the top of the ship. We don't have any really well-defined light sources that are generating any of the lighting for this, but that's okay. It's narrative. It looks right. It feels good. It's good separation. It's got that good striation of light to dark, the light to dark, the light to dark. It has that stepping effect of moving between contrasts, so all the pieces pop appropriately. So light, dark, darker, light, darker, dark, darker, light, darker, light, dark. Anyway, so everything has its own separation. I think it's sitting pretty good. Anyway. That's it for now. I'm going to be back. I'll be back in about 4 hours to work on the Selesnya and Simic Combine guilds in Ravnica setting. And then, so that'll be it for the day. And then I'll be back tomorrow morning to, we'll see what I end up working on. I might work on random dungeon generators or something like that. We'll see where I'm taking and what we do. So thanks a lot, everybody, for hanging out with me today. Really appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this thing when it finishes. We're looking at a late January publishing date. Seems pretty realistic at this point for us to be able to do that. We have a few assets that we still need to fold into place, but everything's doing its part. So everything's looking pretty good to go. So I'm happy. Anyway, thanks all for being here, guys. I will see everyone on the other side. Cheers.